Namaste everyone, welcome to YCB Level 1 200 hours yoga teachers training with Ayushman Yoga. My name is Nidhi and I am going to be your companion in this journey. Let's begin. So unit 3. Now this is the last theoretical unit for this course, right? First topic is brief introduction to the human body, the anatomy. So as yoga teachers, it is very important that we understand the human anatomy well, right? Only then we'll be able to understand the asanas better. If we understand the human body well, only then we'll be able to suggest better practices to our practitioners, right? Okay, so let's begin with the fundamental concept. So the basic unit of human body is referred as cell. Now, the basic structure of the cell includes cell membrane, which is the outer lining of the cell, the center of the cell, which is the nucleus, and between these two, there is a gel-like fluid, which is called cytoplasm. Now, within the cytoplasm, there are several organelles, each of which has a specific role in the function of the cell. Some examples of organelles are mitochondria, ribosome, Golgi apparatus, etc. Now, the organelle mitochondria generate most of the chemical energy for the functions of the cell. It is called as the powerhouse of the cell. Now, these cells, right, when they form a separate specialized group, they are referred as tissue. Right? Various kinds of tissues come together and they form organs. A group of organs which work together to carry out a particular function is referred as organ system. And a living being that has a cellular structure and that can independently perform all physiological function is referred as organism. Now, there are 9 major body systems: skeletal system, muscular system, nervous system, endocrine system, respiratory system, cardiac system, digestive system, excretory system, and reproductive system. So first, let's see the muscular system and the skeletal system. Together, they are referred as the musculoskeletal system. Right? Now, think about the musculoskeletal system and why it is important. So, can you imagine the human body without bones? No, right? Can you imagine the human body without muscles? No, right? So, musculoskeletal system together, they give the structure, shape, and the movement to the body. Right? Now, what all constitute the musculoskeletal system? Bones, right? Joint, right? Muscles, and the connective tissue. So, first let's understand what bones are. So, bones are the main reservoir of the minerals in the body. They store calcium and phosphorus in the body and release as per body's requirement. So, there are 4 types of bones, right? Long bones, short bones, flat bones, and irregular bones. Now, long bones. So, as the name suggests, bones which are long, such as thigh bone, which is also known as femur. This is the largest bone in the body. The calf bones, such as tibia and fibula. Long bones are responsible for most of the body movements. Now, the short bones. These provide limited motion. For example, stapes. This is the bone in middle ear, also the smallest bone in the body. Patella bone, the kneecap bone. Tarsals, which are the foot bone, and carpals, which are the hand bones. Now the flat bones. So flat bones protect internal organs such as the skull bone or thoracic cage. Then the irregular bone. Now these have complex shape and help protect internal organs such as irregular bone of the vertebral column protect the spinal cord. Irregular bones of the pelvis protect the pelvic cavity. Now, the human skeleton is divided into 2 parts, axial skeleton and appendicular skeleton. So, axial skeleton is comprised of skull bones, vertebral column, and thoracic cage. And appendicular skeleton consists of arms and legs, pelvis, and shoulder. Now let's look at the number of bones in the axial skeleton. So skull bones. Skull bones are divided into two parts, cranial bones and facial bones. There are 8 cranial bones and these protect the brain, and 14 facial bones which give structure to the face. Then the vertebral column. So there are 26 irregular bones in vertebral column. The spine can be divided into 5 sections. Cervical vertebra, which is C1 to C7. Thoracic vertebra, T1 to T12. Lumbar vertebra, L1 to L5. And then sacrum, which is a structure of 5 vertebrae fused together. Then coccyx, which is a structure of 4 bones fused together. Coccyx is also known as the tailbone. Then the thoracic gate. So this consists of sternum, ribs and costal cartilage. Sternum is a structure of 3 small bones fused together. It is a flat bone. Right? Ribs, there are 12 pairs of ribs which project from the vertebra, and these can be categorized into 3 categories. First is true rib. These are from number 1 to number 7. Now these are called true ribs because they are directly attached to the sternum via the costal cartilage. Then number 8 and 10 is referred as false rib because these are attached indirectly to the sternum via costal cartilages from the ribs above. And number 11 and 12 is referred as floating rib because these do not attach to the sternum at all. Now the appendicular skeleton. So appendicular skeleton consists of arms and legs, pelvis and the shoulders. Right? So first the pectoral girdle, the shoulder girdle. This consists of clavicle, collarbone and scapula, shoulder bone. Together they give structure to the shoulder. Now the upper limbs. So the upper limbs are arms, forearms and hands. The arm bone is called the humor bone. In the forearm there are 2 bones, ulna and radius. And now the wrist is made up of 8 short bones called carpal. Palms are made of 5 bones which are called metacarpal, and finger bones are called phalanges which are 14. Now in the lower limb, this consists of thigh, calf and foot. So the thigh bone is femur, calf bones are tibia and fibula, then there are 7 tarsal, 5 metatarsal and 14 phalanges. In the pelvic girdle, there are ilium, ischium and pubis. So this is about the structure of the human skeleton. Now the connective tissues. So connective tissues connect bone to bone, muscle to bone or muscle to muscle. So the connective tissue which connect bones to bones is called ligament. Right? The tissues which connect bones to the muscle, they are called tendons. And the tissues which connect muscles to muscles are known as the fascia. Now let's look at the joints. So joint is a connection between 2 bones, right? So we are going to look at the classification of joints as per the structure. First is synovial joint. So these are called synovial joint because there is a synovial fluid in these joints. There are 6 synovial joints in the body. First is ball and socket joint. So this is a structure of a ball being fit in a socket and the ball rotates within the socket, such as hip joint or shoulder joint. This joint has most range of motion such as flexion, extension, adduction, abduction, etc. Then the hinge joint. This joint can do only 2 movements, flexion and extension. The joint with the hinge joints are knee joint and elbow joint. Then the pivot joint. The movement of this joint is rotation. An example is joint of the first and the second cervical vertebra and the joint of the wrist that allows the palm of the hand to be turned up and down. Then the condyloid joint. This joint allows 2 movements, radial deviation and ulnar deviation, flexion and extension, such as wrist joint. Then the saddle joint. The movement of this joint are abduction, adduction, flexion, extension and circumduction, such as thumb. And the last is plane or the gliding joint, the joints which glide on each other. Then the fibrous joint. Now these are the joints which are bound by tough fibrous connective tissues. These joints exhibit little to no mobility, and these can be divided into three types. Sutures, which are the joint of the bones of the skull. Gomphosis, which is found in the teeth. And syndesmosis, this is bound by ligaments such as forearms. The third type of joint as per the structure of the joint is cartilaginous joint. In this type of joint, bones are joined by hyaline cartilage. These are of two types, synchondrosis and symphysis. Now the muscular system. So there are over 600 muscles in the body. These can be divided into three types: cardiac muscles, visceral or smooth muscles, and skeletal muscles. Cardiac muscles are involuntary muscles. These have a striated appearance and these form the wall of the heart. Smooth muscles, also known as the visceral muscles, are involuntary muscles. These are found in organs or organ system such as digestive system, respiratory system, etc. These have a non-striated appearance. And then the skeletal muscle. These are the voluntary muscle. These are attached to the skeleton and provide the skeleton with the ability to move. These also have a striated appearance. So cardiac muscle and the skeletal muscle have striated appearance. But cardiac muscle is a involuntary muscle and skeletal muscles are the voluntary muscles. Right? Voluntary means something which you can move as per your will. But you cannot move the cardiac muscle as per your will. Can you? So cardiac muscles and smooth muscles are involuntary muscles. Now the 5 types of muscle movements. First is adduction. Adduction is something which comes towards the body. Remember it by the name adduction, add, like addition to the body. So adduction, right? Abduction, moving away from the body. Then flexion, extension, and rotation. So this covers the basic information about the musculoskeletal system. Next is respiratory system. So human respiratory system is divided into two parts: upper respiratory system and the lower respiratory system. Upper respiratory system consists of nasal cavity, pharynx, and larynx. Lower respiratory system consists of trachea, brachia, bronchioles, and lungs. Now there are two lungs, right lung and left lung. Right lung is divided into 3 lobes: right superior, right middle, and right inferior. And left lung is divided into 2 lobes. This is smaller as compared to right lung, and it has 2 lobes, left superior and left inferior. Then bronchi. So both the lungs are associated externally with small tubular structure called bronchi. This bronchi unites and extends into the trachea. Trachea is a tube-like structure which connects the larynx to the bronchi of the lung. Trachea has incomplete C-shaped rings of cartilage which prevents the tracheal wall from collapsing. Trachea leads into the pharynx, which is connected to the nostril. So this is the organ system for respiratory system. Now let's understand how the respiratory system works. Right? So as we breathe in, the oxygen moves downward through the pharynx and trachea to finally reach the bronchi. Now from each bronchus, oxygen travels into the lungs. Within the lungs, the bronchus divide into further structure called as bronchiales. Now oxygen travels through these bronchiales and reaches to a small sac-like structure into the lungs called alveoli. And in the alveoli, the gas exchange happens. Next system is cardiovascular system. So the cardiovascular system is part of the circulatory system. Cardiovascular system and the lymphatic system together makes the circulatory. We are only studying the cardiovascular system for this course. So cardiovascular system consists of heart, blood, and blood vessels. Right? So heart essentially is a pump which moves blood through the vessels. It has 2 sides, each of which has 2 chambers. right atrium and right ventricle, left atrium and left ventricle. Now the function of the heart. So oxygen poor blood returns to the right atrium and then to the right ventricle. And from there it is pumped to the lungs through pulmonary artery. In the lungs, blood picks up oxygen and releases carbon dioxide. Oxygen-rich blood then returns to left atrium and to the left ventricle from there, and from here the oxygen-rich blood gets pumped into body's tissues through aorta. Then when blood reaches to the tissues, it releases the oxygen and picks up carbon dioxide. This deoxygenated blood returns to the right atrium and the circuit continues. Now the blood vessels. Blood vessels are meant for carrying blood throughout the body. There are two types of blood vessels, arteries and veins. The oxygen-rich blood travels through the arterial blood vessels. Largest artery is aorta. Arteries are further divided into two smaller systems, arterioles and arteriole capillaries. Capillaries are the smallest blood vessel. Arterial capillaries are connected to the venous capillary. So what happens is that the arterial side of the capillary drops off the oxygen and nutrients to the body cell. The venous side of the capillary picks up the metabolic waste from the body cells. Together they form a network where arteries and veins can completing the closed circulatory circuit. Now the blood. So blood is a fluid made of plasma, and plasma is 90% water. There are three types of blood cells: erythrocytes or red blood cells, leukocytes or white blood cells, thrombocytes or platelets. Next is nervous system. So the prime objective of nervous system is to coordinate the function of the body and enable the body to respond. So nervous system is divided into two parts, central nervous system and peripheral nervous system. Central nervous system is made up of brain and spinal cord. Now brain is a very complex structure. Let's look at some of the important sections of the brain. First is cerebrum. This is the largest section of the brain, which is divided into four lobes. Frontal lobe, it is involved in voluntary movement, intelligence, parts of speech, planning, problem solving and emotion. Parietal lobe, it is involved in processing sensory information from the body, such as touch, pain, temperature and the sense of limb position. Occipital lobe, it is primarily responsible for vision or visual processing. And temporal lobe, it is responsible for auditory processing, speech, memory, language and processing emotion. This cerebrum is divided into two sections, right hemisphere and left hemisphere. Next is cerebellum. The main function of cerebellum is to initiate and coordinate movement and regulate temperature. Diencephalon. This is a primary relay and processing center for sensory information and autonomic control, such as coordinating with the nervous system to release the hormones, regulating the circadian rhythm, meaning sleep and wake cycle. Midbrain. Midbrain plays a role in motor movement and audio-visual processing. Pons. Pons is a part of brainstem, a structure that links the brain to the spinal cord. Pons handle unconscious processes such as sleep or wake cycle and breathing. Then medulla oblongata. This is responsible for heart and blood vessel function, digestion. It is known as the center of respiration, swallowing, coughing, sneezing and blood pressure. Then spinal cord. Spinal cord is the link between the brain and the nerves in the rest of the body. It has four regions: cervical, thoracic, lumbar. Spinal nerves. Spinal nerves are of two types, afferent and efferent. Afferent nerves carry information from the body to the brain, and efferent nerves carry information from the brain to the body. Peripheral nervous system. This is the nervous system outside the brain and spinal cord. This is further divided into two types: somatic nervous system and autonomic nervous system. Somatic nervous system is responsible for nearly all voluntary muscle movements as well as processes sensory information. Autonomic nervous system is further divided into sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system. Sympathetic nervous system is essential for our survival. This is the nervous system which activates the fight or flight response in case of a threat. This is located near the thoracic and lumbar region in the spinal cord. Parasympathetic nervous system brings all system of the body back to normal once the threat is gone. This is known as the rest and digest or feed and breed response. This is located in between the spinal cord and medulla. Now the digestive system. So digestive system includes organs that break down the food into fats, vitamin, carbs, protein, which can then be used by the body for the growth or repair. So digestive system is divided into two parts: alimentary canal or gastrointestinal tract and accessory digestive system. Alimentary canal is a one long tube which extends from mouth to anus. This tract consists of the mouth, esophagus, stomach, small intestine, large intestine and anus. Accessory digestive system are the organs which help in digestion but are not part of the digestive tract. The 5 accessory digestive organs are tongue, salivary gland, pancreas, liver and gallbladder. Now there are 5 actions which takes place in this system. Ingestion. This is the action of putting food into the mouth and chewing. Propulsion. This is the action of swallowing food. Mechanical breakdown. This is the process of physically breaking down food into smaller pieces. Digestion or chemical digestion. This is the process of chemically breaking down food into simpler molecule. Absorption is the entrance of the ingested food into the body. And defecation, this is the process of eliminating undigested material through the anus. Now the gland system. So glands are the organ which secretes substances into the body. There are 2 types of gland, exocrine and endocrine. Endocrine glands are the ductless gland, which means that the substance released by these glands gets mixed directly into the bloodstream, right? Exocrine glands on the other hand are a duct gland. So the substance released by these glands are first stored into the ducts and then gets released upon a specific stimulation, such as the tear gland or sweat gland. Now endocrine system. Human body needs control over the cell, over its structure, over several body processes to maintain its optimum level of functioning. This control is given by 3 systems: nervous system, immune system and the endocrine system, right? Now immune system is responsible for actions against damage, illness, etc. Nervous system is in charge of various body processes which happens rather fast, such as movement, breathing, etc. Endocrine system in general in charge of body processes which happens rather slowly, such as the rate of height increase, maintenance of electrolytes and ions in the blood, etc. Now, how does the endocrine system work? So let's understand it with the example of the pancreas. So pancreas has a rich blood supply, right? This supply senses the increase of glucose in the blood. So whenever we eat, the level of glucose increases into the blood. Pancreas senses this and releases the hormone called insulin. This hormone, insulin, activates most of the cells in the body so that they can take up that glucose. This entire process is important for the blood sugar concentration level. Now let's look at some other glands. Thyroid gland. This is located immediately below the larynx and is the largest endocrine gland. This gland secretes two hormones, thyroxine, which is also known as T4, and triiodothyronine, which is known as T3. Parathyroid gland. Parathyroid glands are a small gland which are located behind the thyroid. These are responsible for continuously monitoring and regulating blood calcium level. Adrenal glands or suprarenal gland. Now these are called adrenal as they are present just adjacent to the kidney. They are also known as the suprarenal as they are located above the kidney. Adrenal glands are triangular shaped and made up of cortex and medulla. The cortex primarily releases hormones such as aldosterone, cortisol, and androgens. The medulla primarily releases hormones such as epinephrine and non-epinephrine. These are the hormones which are often activated in physical and emotional stressful situation, fight or flight response. Pancreas. Now, this organ consists of both endocrine as well as the exocrine part. The exocrine function of the pancreas is to release the enzymes which are important for digestion, such as trypsin to digest protein, amylase to digest carb. The endocrine part of pancreas contains around 1 million islets which are known as islets of Langerhans. This part produces hormones which are necessary for blood sugar control, insulin and glucagon. Now the reproductive hormones. So in male body, the testes are a pair of sperm producing organs that maintain the health of male reproductive system. The testes are also known as gonads. These primarily secretes testosterone, which is vital to the normal development of male physical characteristics. The female counterpart of testes is called ovaries. Ovaries secrete two very important hormones, estrogen and progesterone. Now the excretory system. So excretory system consists of organs which remove metabolic waste and toxins from the body. Right? The primary excretory organs in the human body are the kidneys, ureter, urethra and urinary bladder. The basic functional unit of kidney is called nephron. These nephrons perform the primary task of filtering the blood and removing waste products. Ureters are a pair of thin muscular tubes. They come out of each kidney and carry urine from the kidney to the urinary bladder. Urinary bladder is a muscular sac-like structure which stores urine. Urethra is a tube which arises from the urinary bladder and helps to expel urine out of the body. In males, it also acts as a common route for sperm as well as urine. Now the reproductive system. So the male reproductive system is mostly located outside of the body. These external organs include the penis, scrotum and testicle. Internal organs include the prostate and urethra. The male reproductive system is responsible for sexual functions as well as urination. In the female reproductive system, the main organs are vulva, labia, clitoris, urethra and vagina. The female reproductive system enables a woman to produce egg, also known as ova, have sexual intercourse, protect and nourish a fertilized egg until it is fully developed and give birth. So this covers the brief introduction to the human body. Go through the written material very thoroughly, take the quiz and I will see you in the next lecture.